All right, everybody, you ready for chapter 3? Okay, after this chapter, we are going to still be looking at character analyzation. This is one book where we really focus closely on how the character changes and evolves all the way through the book. Okay, so consider each chapter kind of like a bump in a roller coaster. Okay, today, after this chapter, I'm going to have you do a regular stop and jots of some sequence order. And as always, feel free at the end if you want to throw in that character force square, something about Charlie's emotions, her thoughts, actions, and her words. Because we did do something once where we looked at every page, and almost every sentence that we read had either a thought, a feeling. Well, you can convey her feelings through her thoughts, words, and actions. So keep that in mind as we are reading. All right, let's jump into chapter 3. That night out on the back porch with Gus and Bertha, I saw the first star twinkling over the treetops. I closed my eyes and wished like crazy. Making a wish? Gus asked. I felt myself blush and get red in the face. No. Bertha nudged Gus with her elbow. Tell about the time you wished your Uncle Dean would just disappear, and then he did. Gus flapped his hand at her. Aw, now, Bertie, she don't want to hear that boring story. He rocked in his chair, making the porch floor creak and groan underneath. While Bertha talked a blue streak and hardly ever sat still, Gus was the opposite. He was quiet and easygoing, with a calm, slow way about him. I think your teacher is more like Bertha here, right? All the time. He wore a baseball cap all day and half the night. His scraggly brown hair was poking out from underneath it every which way. The bill of his cap was dark brown with some dirt and greasy fingerprints all over it. That there's Pegasus, he said, pointing to a cluster of stars hovering way over the top of the mountains in the distance. So remember when we talked about constellations, right? The way the stars are in the sky, they connect and make a pattern. I even showed you guys that one when we were reading this book. We did a Google picture of Pegasus, right? That's the horse with the wings, remember? Gus should have been a scientist, Bertha said. He could tell you everything you ever wanted to know about stars and air and plants and water and weather and all that stuff. Gus let out a little pfft. He thinks I married him for his good looks, Bertha winked at me. But I married him for his brains. Gus just laughed. And then the most amazing thing happened. They both reached out at the exact same time and held hands from across in their chairs. It was almost like somebody said, okay, on the count of 1, 2, 3, hold hands. I'd never in my whole life seen Scrappy and my mama hold hands like that. Shoot, most of the time they didn't even look at each other. I watched Gus and Bertha sitting there gazing at the night sky. The corners of their mouths turned up into content, happy smiles. And every now and then Bertha looked dreamily over at Gus. Like he was just some movie star, not some scraggly brown-haired man who worked in a mattress factory over in Cooperville. We stayed out there till it started to sprinkle a little rain again. Soft, cold rain sent the cats darting at our feet. I went to bed that night with my head swirling. Thought about Scrappy and my dad snoring away in the county jailhouse, and my mama staring up at the ceiling of her dark bedroom. And I thought about my sister Jackie, whispering and gossiping and painting her toenails with Carol Lee, her best friend. Thought about Howard Odom, that up and down walk of his, and his good-hearted family. And I thought about Gus and Bertha holding hands under the glow of Pegasus. And then I thought about my own pitiful self, lying here wondering if my wish was ever gonna come true. The next day, I wore my sister Jackie's old white majorette boots to school. But I knew I'd made a mistake the minute I got on the bus. As I made my way down the aisle, some of those girls were pointing at my boots, giggling and whispering. I felt my face burning and I glared at them. Howard motioned for me to come sit next to him. But I just flopped down in the seat behind him. I spent the morning drawing on my arm with a blue marker and pretending to read. At recess, Howard tried to get me to let him show me around the school. Come on, I'm your backpack buddy, remember? He said. I shook my head. Forget it. I'm not even really interested. I'm not going to be here much longer. Why not? I rolled my eyes. I told you I'm going back to rally when my mama gets her feet on the ground. Oh, yeah, but I mean, what if your mama don't get her feet on the ground? Well, what kind of question was that? I just stomped away from him. I plopped down underneath the cafeteria windows, and I glared at the kids playing soccer on the playground. Once or twice, I even glanced over at Howard. He was drawing circles in the dirt with his foot, looking all mopey. When the bell rang, everybody scrambled to line up. There were a bunch of wild boys pushing and shoving their way right in front of Howard, and he didn't even say anything. As I headed toward the line, a girl from my class named Audrey Mitchell waltzed right up to me and said, "Nice boots." And she smirked, and all her friends giggled. I felt Scrappy's temper working its way up from the tip of my toes to the top of my head. I was burning hot as fire. Then I said, "Thanks, they're good for kicking." And I kicked her skinny little shin. Hard. The next few minutes were kind of a blur of crying and hollering and tattling, and then I found myself sitting in front of Mr. Mason, the principal. While he lectured about my inappropriate behavior, I studied the inky little stars and hearts that I drew on my arm that morning, making myself a tattoo. Mr. Mason asked me if I knew what I did was wrong, and would I like if somebody did that to me, and a bunch of other questions that I didn't even care about. I said, "Yes, sir," "No, sir," but I kept my eyes on my inky arm, my cute tattoo, and I kept clunking my heels together of my majorette boots. I shrugged when he said he was going to have to call Bertha and tell her what I'd done. I don't care. Then I went back to class and I said I was sorry to Audrey Mitchell, even though I wasn't really sorry. And that was how my second day of school in Colby went. That afternoon on the bus, Howard just ignored my laser thoughts about not sitting next to me, and he made a beeline right for my seat. He dropped down by my side. "You should save me a seat," he said, "because I think backpack buddies are supposed to sit together." "That's against the rules," I said. "I'm pretty sure because I'm your backpack buddy, you could save me a seat." I just rolled my eyes and looked out the window. "Why'd you kick Audrey Mitchell?" Howard asked me. So I told him how she had said, "Nice boots," with that smirk on her face. He shook his head and said, "You know, Charlie, why you gotta get so mad about stuff like that? That ain't nothing." So I shot him a glare. What was he thinking? That was nothing. Sure as heck hurt my feelings when she said it. I almost told him about my fiery temper that I got from my dad, Scrappy, but I didn't. Instead, I told him how I got sent home from kindergarten the very first day for poking some boy with a pencil. "Did you poke him with the eraser or the pointy end?" he asked. "Pointy." "Dang, Charlie." I shrugged. "I know, but I was mad." "About what?" he asked. "I don't know." He stuck his thumb right through my sandwich, and that was kind of gross. Howard shook his head again, almost making his red hair flop around over his glasses. "Here's what you do from now on, Charlie. Listen to me. Every time you feel yourself starting to get mad, say, 'Pineapple.'" "Pineapple?" "Yeah." "Why pineapple?" "That'll be like a code word to remind you to simmer down. My mama taught my little brother Cotton to say rutabaga every time he gets the urge to draw on the wall. He's not supposed to draw on the wall in our house. You know, you're supposed to color down on paper, but he likes to draw on the wall." "Does it work?" "Sometimes." Well, that sounded like the dumbest thing I'd ever heard, but I didn't say so to Howard. We sat in silence as the bus made its way up the narrow mountain road. Every once in a while, the view out the window changed from woods, thick with pine trees and ferns and moss-covered rocks, to a wide open view of mountains stretching on forever in the distance. There was a smoky haze that seemed to cover them. It seemed a soft gray against the deep blue color of the mountains. "Now that there's why they're called the Blue Ridge Mountains," Gus had told me the first day I got to Colby, "'cause they're blue." Then he had gone on explaining how the color was because of something the pine trees released into the air and blah, blah, blah. and I don't know what the heck he was talking about, but I just smiled and nodded like I did, to be polite. When the bus got to Howard's house, he grabbed his backpack and said, "Remember, pineapple." I watched him and his brother go up the rickety steps of their front porch and disappear inside the house, letting the screen door slam with a big bang behind them. Next to the front door, there was a ratty-looking couch with dried-up flowers, coffee cans, lining the edge of the porch. On the couch, there was this old-looking tattered bedspread. Maybe the Odoms' hearts were so good that they didn't really care that they lived in such a sad-looking house, I thought. The bus chugged and groaned up the winding road, and I was thinking about what I was going to say to Bertha about my kicking incident today at school, when suddenly there was a commotion outside the window that caught my eye. There were two dogs fighting in a dirt driveway beside a cluster of trailers. One was small and black, and the other one was brown and black, and skinny as anything. The girl was screaming and carrying on, and an old man turned the garden hose and aimed it right at the dog and sprayed that skinny little brown and black dog. "Get out of here," he hollered. A woman ran out from one of the trailers and tried to grab the black dog while the skinny little dog was snapping and growling, and he suddenly took off running. He ran along the edge of the road beside the bus for a minute or two, his long ears flapping in the breeze. I pressed my face up against the window, and I just watched him loping alongside the road. Then he turned and ran off and disappeared into the woods. When I got off at Gus and Bertha's a few minutes later, I looked down at my majorette boots. You know, my sister Jackie always looked so pretty in them. But I guess I just looked dumb. I guess those girls were right to laugh at me. That familiar mad feeling was settling over me, like a blanket. But this time I was feeling mad at myself for being a loser that nobody wanted. I stomped my foot, then I kicked at the gravel. I sent it tumbling into the rhododendron bushes along the side of the driveway. And then I whispered, "Pineapple," before heading up to Gus and Bertha's. All right, guys. So that's chapter 3. We kind of see a little bit of not so much problem and solution, but Howard does try to offer her a solution to help her with her self-control. So when we look closely and think about Charlie's emotions and her persona, the way she deals with things, we see that there is not much control there from her thoughts before they become her actions, right? Before she physically acts out or before she says something. So what I want you to do is think about that, right? I want you to try to, in your head, analyze what kind of character she is, draw a conclusion from her words, thoughts, and behaviors, and tell me a little bit in your journal. Just describe her for me. What kind of a child do you think she is? Is she somebody that if she came to your school as a new student, would you want to run right up to her and be friends with her? So I know if you were in my homeroom class, you already answered a lot of these questions and you already have all this in your journals. But there are still 40 students from the other 2 homeroom classes that did not get to experience this book just yet. So let's do that, okay? I want you to write a little bit about that. I'm gonna throw up a screenshot here for you of your Stop and Jots, okay? So right about now, you are probably, you don't need to rewrite your character setting problem, but go ahead and give me a little sequence of the order of events of things that had happened and see if you want to make a connection. This time today, let's do a different connection. Instead of thinking how you would act if you were Charlie, I want you to think about, oh my goodness, I just realized I didn't hit share screen. Hold on, give me a moment. Okay. I'm sitting here looking at it, reading it to you. Okay, so I want you to think about, I'm gonna put my face over character setting and problem. So today, start with your sequencing of what happened in this chapter. And then let's make a connection for if you were Howard, how would you be responding to Charlie? He is very helpful. He's a very nice little boy. I don't know if we would all have the same feeling towards being her backpack buddy, if we would treat her with such compassion and understanding. So you let me know how you would interact and socialize with Charlie as one of her classmates, okay? Whether it's Howard or any other classmate. Shh, I'm almost finished, stop it. Stop arguing. Okay, so that's where I'm going to stop for here, and I will see you with chapter 4. Okay, all right, close this out. All right. See you soon.